If you're new to Brotato, or you're struggling to get through some of the higher danger levels, this video should help you out with some pointers that aren't immediately obvious when you start playing. And if you watch until the end, there's a bonus tip waiting for you. Tip number 1 is don't ignore harvesting. This stat helps you get money and XP. It's best to take it early, ideally on wave 1 or 2, because it scales 5% by itself after every wave. You can make it scale even more than that with certain items or classes. For each point in harvesting, you get a point of XP and a material for the store. Take it early in the run and try to get it up to around 20 before you set it aside for better stat upgrades. Tip number 2 is don't ignore luck. This stat matters because you'll get more health drops from enemies, more crates, and better items in the store. This is another one to pick up early in the run, ideally on the first or second wave, and take items that boost luck, as long as they don't negatively affect other stats too much. Once you get above 25 luck, you'll really start to notice the benefits. More luck equals better items, more health drops, and more crates, which are free upgrades. Tip number 3 is don't stress out too much about collecting all the XP. Focus on survival. The leftover XP gets collected at the end of the wave and put into a coin purse. On the next wave, the remaining XP in the purse is redistributed into enemies that you kill, and the XP they drop will be worth double. This is a pretty elegant solution to making sure that you're scaling in level at the same time that the enemies are scaling in difficulty. Tip number 4 is build for the class. Each class you pick has some advantages and some disadvantages, and it's important to keep checking these to make sure you're picking items and stats that complement the build accordingly. For example, you don't want to be picking up damage upgrades as the pacifist, nor would you want to take an HP regen upgrade if you're playing as the sick class. You can always remind yourself of the stats to look for by mousing over your class portrait in the pause menu and at the shop menu down to the lower left. Tip number 5 is don't ignore weapon synergies. If you mouse over the weapons, you'll notice that they have a type which applies certain attributes like attack speed, armor, speed, etc. If you can get a full set going, some of the weapon types can really give you a strong boost. Depending on what class you're working with, try to focus on weapons that'll complement the strengths of that class and get a set together for that extra bonus. Tip number 6 is don't be afraid to replace weapons that aren't working. One of the fun things about this game is wielding 6 different weapons, but often you might find yourself being ineffective against the enemies as they start scaling in health, armor, and speed. Don't be afraid to dump weapons that aren't giving you a boost with synergies or aren't doing enough damage per wave. When it comes time to replace a weapon, mouse over it to check how much damage it did during the last wave. Dump underperforming weapons and replace them with ones that complement your best ones. Reroll if you need to, which brings me on to tip number 7. Tip number 7 is reroll, reroll, reroll. Like I mentioned in tip number 4, your goal needs to be building to the class. So when you see the stat screen and your skill isn't listed, reroll if you can. Keep going until you get the stat you want. Yeah, it costs money, but not building your skills up can cost you the entire run. You need to do it. The same goes for weapons and items too. Don't lock items unless it's something you really know you need, or it's something super rare like a purple or red item, and you can't afford it at the moment. Tip number 8 is to keep moving. There are a couple classes like the soldier where it makes sense standing still, but otherwise you need to be on the go. I don't know about you, but my warped brain thinks that when you're standing still, the weapons are firing faster. Trust me, they're not, so move around the map. Not only will you live longer, but you'll be collecting more pickups, shooting more trees, and avoiding the swarms. Resist the temptation to stand still. Resist it! Tip number 9 is to know the sounds in the game. This seems really goofy, but knowing the audio cues can help you deal with surviving in the later waves when things get so hectic on the screen it's really hard to tell what the hell's going on. If you hear a squishing sound, that means you're taking damage. A metal clanging sound means a critical hit. There's a sound for the crate pickups too. And if you hear a weird huffing kind of noise, that's enemies getting buffed. Tip number 10 is watch your max HP. This scales when you level, but if you don't have a really high dodge chance, some enemies can nearly one-shot you when you get hit. So as you're leveling up in the first 10 or so waves, it can sometimes be good to take some max HP boosts. You want to aim at having your max HP above 50, so that if you get into trouble with some fast enemies or lots of projectiles, you can take a few hits even if you have no armor or dodge. Believe me, I've died on wave 20 plenty of times, and it's a soul-crushing feeling. Watch that max HP and make sure you're beefy enough to not get squished on the last wave. And if you made it through this whole video, here's your bonus tip. Relating to tip number 6 about weapons, you need to make sure that you are doing enough damage for the end boss. However, Wave 20 is timed, just like all the other waves, so it's not super clear when you first start playing, but you can actually win the run by outlasting the boss and letting the timer run down. This is how you win runs with the Pacifist, Explorer, and other low damage classes. When in doubt, just use tip number 8 and run around like a little chicken. The smell of victory will still waft over you, even if you win the wave by running away scared like a little wuss. That's it for all the tips, guys. Enjoy Brotato and good luck clearing all of your Danger 5 runs. Please consider subscribing if you found this video helpful. Cheers and thanks for watching.